you have great coaches. Then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing. Just win, David.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. AP is in the house. So is the night. Better late than never. Welcome to another episode of Night of the Shield. I'm your host, Jason Smith, a.k.a. the Oakland Knight, a.k.a. the Blind Jedi. This is brought to you by Independently Blind Studios, where we educate, advocate, motivate, and inspire people going through loss to live their best life. All right, here we go. Not much to get into today, simply because we're at a standstill. Things got a little backwards in this process. We were told GM, then head coach. Some controversy in the GM department. I thought that it would be announced even before I got to make this episode, but it hasn't. As the day is today of this recording, it's January 22nd, 2024, so it's a Monday. It's when we thought the announcement would come through. It may come in as I'm sitting here speaking to you all. I doubt it. It's probably close to 7 o'clock at night here on the West Coast, so I don't see that happening, but, maybe tomorrow. I know that they were talking to the ex-Chargers GM again, re-interviewing him, if it couldn't get any more interesting, right? Reports still saying that it could be Dobbs, could be Kelly. I may give my thoughts and opinion on that towards the end of this episode, but I want to give my thoughts out on AP and some of the things that have been going around and things that people are saying that I personally don't agree with. So let's go ahead and get that going. All right, man, real quick. I know that it wasn't 100% of the fan base was pounding the table for AP. I get it. A lot of people wanted Harbaugh. A lot of us understood the power that Harbaugh could bring to this team. Some of us also recognize some of this dysfunction of this team already and how maybe Harbaugh could just buy into more of that dysfunction, meaning he'd come in as a dictator and we wouldn't build the structure that I feel is needed to get this organization back on track. Now, if later on down the road, when this thing's a well-oiled machine once again, if that person comes along and can do the job, then fine. But after all these years, it is time to bring real structure back to the organization. And more of that will come, once they hire the GM, right? Because that's the key to all this. Everybody's wanting to put in their 2 cents about AP right now. We don't even know who our GM is. A lot of people are focusing on offensive coordinator, rightfully so, because that is the next step too, right? We need an offensive coordinator. It's key. We may be losing Patrick Graham. Probably the biggest piece to this puzzle, right? And all of that ties into some of the opinions that are happening about AP right now. Look, we didn't just hire AP because he went 5-4. Okay? It's how we went 5-4. And a lot of that does go to the credit of Patrick Graham. I've said it and I'm going to stick to it, right? I'm still giving the defense 90% to Patrick Graham. But I am taking a big piece, a 10% piece of what AP's role was when taking over as interim coach of the Las Vegas Raiders last year, was based on his input into the team. There's no real answer here to say how much of the influence AP had on this defense. What I do know is the players played for him like no other, right? We do know that. That's been established. And it's fair to say that since he took over, the defense took it to another level. Now, whether that's AP's influence mixed in with taking some of the shackles Patrick Graham possibly could have had from the last regime that let him open it up and do a little bit more, be more aggressive, play freely, whatever the case may be, they worked well together. So if Patrick Graham does not get a shot, I do see Patrick Graham coming back, and that's the next step for me. I really would love to see Patrick Graham continue what they started. You know, eventually we got to realize that if Patrick Graham continues, he's going to get a coaching job eventually. which is another conversation to be had as this all develops, because no matter what we do, what direction we take it, coordinators, offense or defense, are the ones that get targeted for head coaching jobs. And that's where a lot of the speculation starts to come in from mainstream media / experts who are talking about AP's lack of experience, whether or not Mark Davis made the right call. And yes, as a fan base from the locker room, everybody's saying, yes, you did. Now people are trying to say, well, you shouldn't listen to your locker room. Wrong, man. I was having a conversation with Kenny this weekend. I wanted to bring Kenny on a live. We just didn't get to it this weekend. Kenny was down. We did some our independently blind group this weekend with the kids. But leadership listens to their people. Okay? Leadership listens to their people. Good leaders have the ability to be quick to listen and slow to speak. Those who know where that comes from, they know. Okay? Oftentimes, bad leaders don't listen to the people that are actually grinding out there and try to make assumptions of their own mind, meaning do it their way no matter what. And again, what we would call in the sport world, right, taking a square peg and trying to put it in a round hole. That's what tends to happen for some of these coaches. That's exactly what McDaniels was, to be quite honest. AP's the type of guy that's going to listen to his players and let them be themselves while implementing structure and accountability. I get it. Here's one of the things I heard today. Well, the AFC West is just full of great coaches. Andy Reid, Sean Payton. The rumor's still heavy that Harbaugh is going to end up in Los Angeles. Okay, cool. I get it. These are guys that have made, over the years, have made names for themselves. Do you know what AP has going for them? Over them, excuse me. You know what AP has over them? Time. Very much they're younger, right? I think AP's like 38. Don't quote me on that. Somewhere around there, right? 38. Not even 40 years old yet, I believe. Anybody want to correct me? Go ahead and put it in the comment section down below. And before Andy Reid was Andy Reid in Philly, before he took the Eagles to the Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb, T.O., and the boys, he was a really solid head coach, right? But he had to start somewhere. He started with no experience. Same with Sean Payton, right? Started with zero experience as a head coach. I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody, we can get all wrapped up in what kind of coordinators they were, but how many times do we sit here and say, just because you're a good coordinator doesn't mean you're going to be a good head coach? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. If we were to go out and bring in Ben Johnson, we don't know if he's going to be a good head coach or just a good offensive coordinator. We don't know. So the fact is, AP has a small resume where he took a team, changed their identity mid-season, and had him go 5-4. And not only did he get him to 5-4, he beat Sean Payton and he beat Andy Reid. Check, please. Not to say that it's going to be that easy every time for him moving forward. It just shows that he has the ability to get this team to rise to the occasion. Here's another thing. The concern that they should have because of the Minnesota debacle. We need to clear that one up. I don't think I had a chance to really set my opinion straight when it comes to what happened off the bye against Minnesota. We lost 3-0. Okay? What part of that is solely on AP's shoulders? I mean, you're the head coach, right? Interim head coach. You got to take it on the chin. But if I'm not mistaken, that defense held that team to 3 points. That was the strength. That was the reason we're 5-4 is because of the defense, not because of the offense. I mean, there's arguments being had right now about AOC. Is he our future? And I'm not here to talk down on AOC because I wanted to see the kid play. We needed to see what we had. He has some interesting talent. He is a capable quarterback. But is he an elite quarterback? Is he the type of quarterback you want going up against Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Justin Herbert, as we know it right now? The Broncos may bring in a younger guy. They may bring in one of those next generational guys that we don't get a chance to get. Conversation to be had once we figure out our OC and GM, by the way. But as it stands right now, do you want AOC? And I don't care. Look, AOC didn't do anything in that Chiefs game. Okay? So we already know what that could look like. Bo Hardigree was the offensive coordinator. No experience, zero. Just like Antonio Pierce, given a tough task. He had to simplify an offense that was overly complex that the offense wasn't buying into. They weren't gelling. They did okay. But that honestly, is it a smudge on AP? Sure, I guess you could say that. But honestly, due to the circumstances, he gets a bye on that, bro. That's not on him. Now, if the defense would have came out after the bye and really stunk it up, maybe. But then we have to take the argument away that Patrick Graham's not a part of that either, right? So again, let's be quick to listen and slow to speak. And let's just say, right, that there's a lot of talent on this offense. And with the full offseason of bringing in a new offense, it's going to, because he's going to listen to his players, okay? And we'll see what we do from the quarterback perspective moving forward. But I promise you, this offense will perform and look 100% completely different. Which, if you look at this past year, past two if you want, is a positive thing. Positive, super positive. And if we're able to retain Patrick Graham, that only sweetens the pot. Because now we have potentially a returning top 10 defense that has room to improve, which I have a lot to say about that. This is not that video. With an offense now that will probably be able to at least score some points. Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say who's going to be here and what it's going to look like, but it will be much better than it was last year, which makes us a horse in the race. It does. And AP will have his first full season moving forward. Here's the greatest thing about AP, man. He knows what he doesn't know. He already admits to it. He's bringing in, they already hired Marvin Lewis. He already has a mentor in-house to help him learn what he doesn't know. He has 9 games under his belt that he can learn from. Situations that he was put in, that he made mistakes in, that he will learn from. And continue. You don't think Andy Reid had to go through that? You don't think that Sean Payton did? Come on now. You got to go out, get the coaches, get the players, and then go win. Mark did the right thing. He might not have 100% of the vote from the Raider Nation, but he's got 100% vote from the locker room. And he convinced the powers that be, the committee, that AP was the right move. Here's the thing. Regardless if you were a Harbaugh person or an AP person, or, you understood that AP probably was the right move, and I'm going to get into that before we finish up with the GM when we get out of here, okay? They didn't even interview Harbaugh, from our understanding. No real contender was interviewed, in my opinion. It was AP's job this whole time. That's why he was so confident. I believe that he was told that too. I believe that he was at least told it's going to be very hard for me not to hire you. He was pretty confident this whole time. He went and did his rounds. He did his due diligence. He stayed low key for the most part, but he got the job. So even if you would rather have Harbaugh, look, why wouldn't they talk to Harbaugh? Maybe because, again, we act like we know it all, right? Like, oh my God, well, Harbaugh's the best out there, so Raiders just got. What if he doesn't want to be a Raider? Obviously. And who's to say that he's truly tied to Dobbs? We don't know that. Just because they were on a team together once before. I know it's highly speculated that those two might be connected. Then how come San Diego, or I almost did it again. I always do that. How come Los Angeles didn't bring Dobbs in already if they're so confident they're going to get Harbaugh? Could be a lot of reasons, right? Like control. Again, I'm not going to sit here and buy into all the hoopla, the rumors. All I know is AP proved himself to be a leader. Something that can't be taught, by the way. That's just something you're naturally good at, and he's good at it. That's a consensus around anybody he's ever been around, player, coach, or otherwise. He gets the most out of the players. That's a starting point. What he's got to nail is his coordinators. Patrick Graham comes back, check that box. They have to make the right decision with the offensive coordinator. The biggest questions that I have right now at this moment is who's making those decisions? A lot of names being thrown out there. Cliff Kingsbury's still one of them. He's at the top of my list. They're looking into the Rams assistant, basically, because McVay calls that system over there. And at the end of the day, really, it's going to be dependent to me. Their GM has to be at play. I really think it's still going to be Kelly. Kelly will be a part of this moving forward. And I say that primarily because if these names are being floated around and they're already talking to offensive coordinators, there has to be some type of understanding with the front office of what direction they want to go. Now, as a head coach, you should have the right to pick your personnel. This is a different case. And this is why I wanted AP the whole time, because I do believe there needs to be structure and accountability across the board from Mark Davis down. That's where it starts, right? Mark Davis has his committee. And I think, even though I think Champ Kelly at least needs to be a part of it, I will say, because he has an understanding of the roster as it is and things that were already in place, maybe things that they were already looking at. You know, he has a good grasp on AP, his personality, and how that all needs to mesh. And at some point, AP needs to detach himself from the GM, right? They need to come together. They need to put the game plan together. What's going to be our identity? Offensively, defensively, special teams, boom, go execute. You go do you, I'll go do me, and that's it. Then it's going to be Mark Davis. If he brings football operation guy in, cool. They could put a middle guy in between Mark and the GM. That'd be cool. Then the GM, boom. Then go right down to AP and so on and so forth. Structure, accountability. Everybody doing their job. I don't know if you want AP just running around gunslinging right now, just making all these calls with Marvin Lewis without having your GM at least somewhat solidified. Right? And maybe some of these guys are waiting to make their decision based off some of these other teams that are still kind of floating around. Waiting to see what they're going to do with their head coaching position. I've heard people talk about Belichick and Carroll. Come on, man. These guys are old and long in the tooth. And let's be real. Belichick, Carroll, Reed, Peyton, Harbaugh. Great coaches, man. They all done something major in this in the National Football League at the pro level. Some did both college and pro, right? But here's the thing. They don't win in and year out. Andy Reid is on the cusp of building a dynasty. He has, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Ravens got that on lock this weekend. But, you know, Andy Reid, out of all of them right now, is the hottest coach with the hottest players in the hottest situation. He's got the floor right now. These guys are looking up at him. And that guy's long in the tooth. He's had some health issues. And AP and our organization that's rebuilding right now, from the organizational standpoint up into the players, got the youngest coach in that division. Okay. Eventually those guys are going to be gone. And the last one standing could be, if it all goes well and it all lines up right, will be AP. And to be the best, you got to go against the best. AP is going to have a ton of learning experience this next season. Coming off a season where he's already proved his worth as a leader and a guy that can get not just the players, not just the locker room, The coordinators bought in. The cooks, right? The janitors, they were saying everybody, like the whole organization was already starting to turn just by him implementing his leadership skills. That's something that can't be taught, y'all. I'm just being real. But with that said, I just wanted to get out here and show my excitement, show my support for AP, okay? Kind of shed some light about the Minnesota game that, look, defensively, they were fine. And that's supposed to be his pedigree. We all knew the offense was going to struggle. We had a rookie offensive coordinator restructuring an offense the players didn't even like as a first-time play caller to boot. Like, it is what it is. We still came out 5-4. The defense is the reason we're 5-4. And if anything, let's make sure we get Patrick Graham back. And one last note too: pay these guys. Pay Graham his money. If you want that offensive coordinator, if it's Cliff Kingsbury and you want to give him a shot and he's not going to be here, but just for a few years, pay the man. Pay the man. Pay their coordinators their worth. Restructure the way that the NFL views everything, right? Find leaders to run your football team. Find coordinators to coach your team. Offense, defense. I'm excited. I think this could be revolutionary, something that hasn't been done in years. Old school football. Let's go. I'm here for it. I'm also here and eager to find out who's our GM, what we're going to be doing in the draft. A lot to break down as we move on week to week. There's no sense for me to get into it right now. I have a lot of thoughts, but I got to see how this all plays out. Who's going to be looking at the players? Who's going to be head of our player personnel stuff? Who's going to be our offensive coordinator? And then we got to get into free agency. A lot of things to develop. The only thing we're going to know is what we don't know. So let's write it out. So hopefully I'll be back tomorrow to talk about the new GM or the new GM or new old GM, however you want to say that. A lot to cover, man. A lot to be excited for, Raider Nation. Stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button, that notification bell so you can be updated every time I drop another episode. And you already know what it is, man. Stay Raider strong. Night out.